Back. We're
Hey,
back.
Steve, great to see you. I
Good to see
missed you
you
all
as
last week.
always. Don't
Yes.
lie. Don't lie. You didn't even think
Good.
about me once, man.
No, who are you? Why am I here?
Exactly.
After a week at the
Exactly.
beach. Can you see I've been at the beach for a week? This deep dark
So
tan?
I certainly cannot see that you've been to the beach
No.
for the week,
Good.
but
That's
more
that's a
importantly,
success
though, man.
story.
Yeah. But more importantly, man, how was your week off? I know you were enthusiastically looking forward to uh, disconnecting, not
Yeah.
doing anything. How was it spending time with the family? And
Great.
how was everything?
It was really beyond expectations. I needed to get away. I think everybody
That's
needs to
fantastic.
find time to do this. And it was something we didn't take lightly. We took a very careful consideration about whether we should go on vacation to a beach resort during a pandemic.
Hmm.
And I'm really glad we did because we found a place that was fairly isolated from people. We spent all our time just in our rental property and then also with this short little path, short little walk to the beach. And we were in an area that was away from the public beach access. So we had
Mm.
pretty much as much space as we needed. We were worried about, people setting up camp next to us or things like that, which you see these pictures on the news, which is happening everywhere. But we were very fortunate, very thankful to find a place where we could pretty much stay just isolated in our little bubble. And I was able to turn it off, turn off work, turn off broadcasts, podcasts, video, and it really helped my brain reset. I don't know if you, I don't know if I know what a brain reset really is until I experienced it. It took a couple days, and I would occasionally slip back, or I'd check. A news flash would come across my phone about the coronavirus or spikes or something going on, and it would send me kind of back down that road of real world anxiety and worry. But then I would just say, that'll take care of itself. Let's just stare at the ocean and listen to the ocean crashing against the beach,
It's awesome,
and
man. It's
literally just
awesome.
just shut it down. And it did happen. It did pay off. So I felt
Good.
very relaxed, and thank you for letting me have that time away. I know it was a sacrifice for you, right? What did you do last week while I was gone?
I mean, beside pining for you,
Yes,
you
yes,
know,
crying in your Cheerios.
um, yeah, I find it interesting, and I say interesting in a number of things. You and I have, we first got involved with this because we wanted to do something for ourselves but also share and provide a platform for people to come and have a conversation about workplace through the pandemic and what that means. And both of us have sort of relied on each other to be that sort of, shoulder to sort of help each other, right?
Sure,
I was gonna say,
absolutely.
I was going to say shoulder to cry on, but I don't think we've got to that point just yet.
Not
But we've
yet.
certainly had it. We've certainly had our emotional roller
Almost
coasters,
there.
right? And last week, I actually found it. I was happy to have the break from the mornings. Absolutely, it was. It was nice not having to get up at early in the morning, have that pressure of getting everything ready, and it does not that this takes that much out of us, or it takes a lot of preparation. It doesn't, because most people can tell we're not prepared ever. But but in
It's
essence,
true.
what I find though, and what I find during the week was how unproductive I was the rest of the day when I don't do
Mm.
this.
Hmm.
And it really, really resonated to me. I think it was probably like by Wednesday. And part of it is we're coming up to the holiday week, so you don't know how much that played into it also.
Right.
Things were slowing down. There was other activities going on. People were, I think a lot of people needed a little break. And I think this weekend provided that to a lot of people. But I did find it tough to maintain my productivity levels when I don't do this, because this just gets me on, it gets me set up, and you get into that routine. And that was something that I did notice.
Yeah, the importance of routine is something we can't underestimate because, yeah, that was my understanding even before we started this 3 months ago, 4 months ago, whatever it was, that if I don't get myself established into a routine, especially as a remote worker, and I think many
Hmm.
people are discovering this as they've had to relearn what productivity means to them and working in this work from home environment, quarantine life, if they weren't used to it before, if they didn't have a established workspace at home, for example, and setup, they had to now establish new habits and routines. And I think that's where we are now, right? Do you think we're in this phase of this is the new reality? Remember, we talked in the beginning about what's the new normal going to be, or when's the new normal going to be? And we had this mindset where we were in this temporary situation. It was a crisis. We all were sent home and we all had to figure things out as far as just to stay somewhat functional for a period of time. First, it was going to be a couple of weeks, and it was a couple of months. But do you think people are now making the shift that this is now my life, this is my work, and this is my integration of my work-life balance? And if we didn't plan properly, if we didn't really make established routines, like I'm so thankful, as you said, I'm so thankful we established this routine of an 8 a.m. morning chat to get things started. I'm showered, I'm ready to go. Whether I have other things going on as far as Zoom calls or other meetings during the day, I have this every day. So it gets me going, gets me productive, gets me rolling. And then whether I go into another Zoom call at 9, or if it's not till 2, I've definitely got myself into a routine. Whereas, like you say, if I didn't have this and I knew my first call wasn't until 2, I might be a little slower out of the gates in the morning. I might not shower right away. I might be losing hours of potential productivity time. So I wonder if people out there watching have found themselves, and I wonder what your routines are, folks, if you could share with us in the comments as far as what you've done to really establish new habits and new routines. And are they all bad or good or a mix? I mean, can you identify some of those? That was what I thought about on the beach, and we can get more into this later, but just some of those bigger picture thoughts of where we are living our life during a pandemic. And I really think we're in a place where that's the new reality. And now we've got to find ways to make the most of this life during a pandemic. What do you think? I mean, is it still are you still in crisis mode, or do you think you've settled into a new normal?
No, I think I've settled into a new normal. And my new normal, probably, the new normal for each person is going to be, I think, very different. I think there's going to be those, the new normal is actually where they just stay in and they don't go out. I think there's going to be a new normal where people just go on living their lives as they were before. And there's going to be a new normal for people that are actually a little cautious, but prepared to go out, do things, interact with other people, maintaining distance, wearing masks, and doing whatever they feel they need to do to be out and participating in a social environment. And I think I almost think, as well, as we look across the US and the various states, I think what New York, San Francisco, New Jersey, Connecticut, what they all went through initially, I think the other states are now going through that reality check, if that's the right thing to say, in a sense of, because it's really bringing home to them, I think, what sort of the New York mindset was, initially, and San Francisco, Virginia, where you are, DC, the large cities on the Eastern Seaboard. And I think those reality checks are gonna swing. A lot of people went from New York down to Florida, down to the Sun States and Texas, and just like, I think some of those things are now changing some perspectives. So it'll be interesting to see what that new normal looks like. But certainly for myself, when I think about what my new normal looks like, my new normal, I think I'm in this, and I think I'm in this for an extended period, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because it's not just our work normal, but it's life. That's why I think I was saying my new phrase is going to be life during a pandemic, living through a pandemic. And that's going to be a bigger picture years kind of experience that we're going to look back on. Remember the year 2020 and 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. And what was life like? Did you just sit at home all day? Did you go out? Did you interact with people? And everybody, like you say, is going to have a different take. And I think it's evolving, and people are experiencing and learning the reality of it. And as it touches people's lives, you get to know people who have experienced this terrible disease, and some are fine. Some are, obviously, sadly losing their lives over it. It's a very serious matter, but it's like, I guess the big thing I've realized, and being that we're coming off of Independence Day weekend and a holiday, July 4th, America is unique in this world. America The United States of America is that, a United States of America. It's like 50 countries in one. So where you saw other parts of the world deal with the issue of the COVID-19 pandemic in one way, collectively as a country, you saw our country deal with it almost 50 different ways, with different governors, different local leaders. And that's what, in a way makes America great. I think it does. We have this kind of very unique setup where we all have states' rights as well as a federal system of governance. So again, without getting down the road of politics, it's not about politics. It's more about just the American way and the ideal. And we obviously are very flawed. We have things we're working on as a people, as a society. But we have some great things about us that makes us unique, and it's our freedoms and it's our ability to govern ourselves. And that's what you were kind of alluding to, as you said, each individual is going to be making choices, and you see the results of that. Some ways, we are actually, because we do allow freedom, we allow people to make choices that may harm themselves or may even harm others. And that's what's the really delicate, difficult situation here, is that now if we don't take things as a society collectively, if we have that kind of selfish ambition that does sometimes make us great, it also can help create an environment where other people are hurt by others' selfishness. So there's all kinds of complex issues here. And those are some of the things I was thinking about on the beach, is that the idea of leadership during this time of a pandemic, during this time in our society, where there are so many different viewpoints and so many different opinions and so many different experiences in the American experience, that to be a leader during this time is very difficult, whether you're a local leader, a corporate leader, a national leader, what have you. You can see that they've all struggled with it. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in particular or any particular party. Again, this is not political. It's more just human beings trying to navigate a very complex situation. And leadership is challenging. And I have some thoughts on how we can be all better leaders in our little world, in our little community. You and I have our small influence in our world we get to talk to, and I want to be more deliberate about that. I think that's one thing I'm going to try to do going forward is be more deliberate about how to lead, not because I have all the answers, but because I want to be a positive influence with my community and help people along through the life of a pandemic.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. It sounds like you've had a very reflective week. A lot of pondering, a lot of questions you've asked yourself, and look forward to unpacking some of those things over the next few days, Mike. And and I know you went to Delaware, and I did see shortly, it was either the day you were leaving or the day before, I can't remember what it was. It went to a red state, right, where basically it was spiking, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I hope he's okay. I hope, because I know you had concerns, but I'm glad you went and you were able to enjoy yourself. What's kind of interesting, and then sort of dig into a little bit and divert into the title for today's show. But I want to open up with a little anecdote, because we've talked about data, and we've talked about data privacy and sort of how open we are to providing our employers with data. And we've often said that people are prepared to provide data when there is a benefit to them, right? This weekend in the UK, pubs opened, so people could go back to bars. And the bars opened at 6 a.m. I believe it was Saturday. I believe it was Saturday morning, 6 a.m. The pubs opened. There were lines around the corner for all these pubs open at 6 a.m.
Wow.
To get into the pub, you had to provide your name, your address, your phone number, your email, your driving license. You had to provide all this data for people to get in. And, an element of it was so that, if something did happen, you could be contact traced. And, but more importantly, and what was more interesting was the amount of information that people were prepared to give up to actually go into the pub and socialize with their friends. Now, at 6 a.m., I don't think people were there just to drink beer. It's more of the socialization and something that they've missed for months, right? But it's really interesting that sort of we think about that, would those same people provide the same information to their employer to go into the office? And it was just something that absolutely fascinated me this weekend,
Yeah, totally. Interesting. I didn't know that story, and I'm totally
Mm,
out of touch with all the kind of current
right.
events, other than things are spiking. And you mentioned in the area where I was, the bars were all closed because there had been cases of COVID reported, 100 new cases. And again, that's what's interesting about reading the news and kind of putting things into context, because I was at the same beach where those cases were spiking, but I was living in a different existence. I wasn't
Mm,
going to bars. I wasn't hanging out, ignoring, the protocols of wearing a mask and social distancing, but many were. And those were the folks that were putting themselves and others in danger. And again, I'm not here to make blanket statements about what's right, what's wrong, but I was able to live and navigate this experience by going to the same geographic location, but living it differently. I
mm.
was in my home with my immediate family and walking to the beach and back. Pretty much that was it. A couple trips to the grocery store the kids made. But yeah, that is interesting when in the UK with the bars, everybody making their decision. That's what's going on throughout this country. And then with the tie into the workplace, I mean, what's the news, Steve? What's going on as far as in New York City? We reopened a couple weeks ago. Phase one, offices were allowed to reopen. Is there any reporting? And again, I got to catch up on a lot of reading here, but have
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
heard or got a sense that how many people are going back, if at all? And is it the employer saying you're free to make this choice, keep working from home or come back into the office?
So
We're open for business.
So what I've seen when I'm sort of as I sort of go, speak through my networks and I speak to my peers and I speak with brokers in various geographies across the planet really. Um, what I'm hearing is offices are opening. They're opening obviously with various degree of standards based on CDC and local regulation.
Right.
And what I'm finding is that very, very few people are going into the office. Now, this stretches, it's almost the statistics you go, well, okay, perhaps this is in locations where things are spiking. Perhaps this is locations where you have almost what we would say almost zero infections, like Australia, where I think it's like, it's like, thousands of people. When I say thousands, I mean 3 or 4 thousand cases in the whole of Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And they're talking about a spike. And the spike you're talking about the beach where you were was in the hundreds. Their spike is in the tens,
You're
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
and that's how they're managing things, right? But even in Australia, the actual amount of people getting into the office is so low, single digit percentages. And I
Wow.
just wonder what that means for the long term effect of the workplace. I don't know if things will change or people are basically voting with their feet in the sense of I actually kind of like the way my life is today. I like that I can get up. I don't have to commute. I don't have to put myself through whatever it is I need to put myself through to get into the office, to sit in a sterile environment, to then sit there at my desk for a period of time and then make myself on my way back home again. I don't know if my friends that I want to socialize with outside of the office in that setting will be there, or whether or not I'm just going to go in and come home again. I don't know, but these it's still early, but all
Yeah.
indications are like we've said before. It's like who wants to go into an office and operate in that environment? And the flip side of it is, we see as soon as states or cities open up, you see these spikes. It isn't straight away. It is usually 6 to 8 weeks after something opens up. So you note that, the UK opened first weekend in July. Let's see what it looks like, 6 weeks from today. And I think if you went back to Georgia, to Florida, and you went back to whenever they first started open up, I think that's when you started to see the spikes. Now, what I don't know from a workplace perspective, what is the long-term impact of this? I think it's going to be tough for employees to, and also for leaders. I mean, in both ways. I think for everybody, what is the right decision? How do you do this? How do organizations progress, and what actually happens to the real estate industry as a whole as we move forward?
Yeah, that's the question, Steve, I have for you is why do we go to the office? And that's what we have to think about. And we, as workplace leaders, this is where there's an opportunity. We have to rethink or maybe just be more deliberate about expressing and communicating the value of the workplace. And it's something that many in our industry have done. Many of the people you've interviewed, I've interviewed, are very thoughtful people. Many of us just go about our routine and do what we've always done, show up at the office at the appropriate time, go to conferences, go to other meetings, and we didn't have to think about it. Now we're all hyper aware that there are risks going out of our homes and into a workplace setting with other people. Well, there again, we always have to keep in mind, and I'm hoping that we get into this phase, and this is what I experienced last week by going on vacation during a pandemic. I went on vacation in a way that was slightly different than I used to. You know, there are certain things we didn't do that we normally would do: go to big crowded boardwalk areas, go get an ice cream cone, you know, with people packed around us waiting for that ice cream cone, things like that. They're inconveniences I missed out on, but to me, the risk reward wasn't there. I'm okay skipping that, bringing some ice cream home and having that experience with my immediate family. So take that idea of, why do we go to the workplace? You said it very well. If it's just to sit and be there doing work that I could do at home, I'm not going to do it. But why did I go to the beach at all? Why did I leave and drive 4 hours from my home in Virginia to the Delaware beach? Was because I wanted to get to a place where I could do something and experience something that I could not experience in my driveway or in my backyard on my porch.
Yep.
The beach, sitting there and listening to the ocean crash against the shoreline, and the sounds and the relaxation and the time away, and the time with my family playing games in the house and watching some TV shows and things like that. So why do we go to work? Why do we go to the office? If we can't communicate that as workplace leaders to our workforce, I think you're right. There's going to be a very difficult time getting people to come back and experience. But if we can give them the equivalent of, remember the reason you came to work, the reason you came to the office, for this unique experience, the workplace experience, the employee experience that you can't get at home, that you're missing out on the opportunities to socialize and collaborate. And are there ways we can express and communicate that it can be done safely and still allow people to experience those things that they used to find valuable? I think that's the key going forward.
Yeah.
And it will be a challenge. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. But do you see an opportunity there? Or, I mean, I think the idea that the office is going to go away is not realistic. I think there are so many things we've discussed here that people need that place to go, not for the head down individual work, but for these other types of experiences: collaboration, innovation, creativity, teams, projects, moving towards something, those things, and social experiences, the interaction, the celebration, the reason we're people. It's like, that's why I was willing to take a risk and do what I did last week. And I think people will take risks. And again, the longer this goes on, the more data comes in, the bigger, we can put things in perspective. But that's where we need leadership. Explain to us that a spike in Australia is 10 people and not thousands of people. When you hear the news saying coronavirus spiking, everybody gets scared, and I don't want to be a part of that. And then it's also case counts spiking, but where's the treatment? Where are we with treatment? Where are we with the actual outcomes of people who have had the disease? Do you see the death count spiking as well? So far, thankfully, not so much from what I can tell. Again, I haven't checked the stats for a while, but case counts were going way up, but it's younger people getting the disease, and therefore they're recovering quickly or are being almost, asymptomatic in many ways. So there's a bigger picture here. And that's what we need leaders to do, is explain to us what the data means and how we can then use it to move forward.
Yeah. And you touched on something that was going through my head, and it is about, what lessons can we learn as we look around and we see people prepared to take risks or, do things that they maybe wouldn't typically do as in an office environment. What I mean by that is, so why are the people in the UK lining up at 6 a.m. to go and hang out with their buddies, to go and drink, some beer at 6 a.m. in the morning, right? Why are they doing that? It's all about social interaction, right? That's what it is all about. So as well as workplace, as organizations, what lessons can we take from there and actually bring that to the workplace? And I'm not saying we go and put bars in workplaces. That's not what I'm saying. But in essence, it's the social interaction that people are prepared to push themselves forward, right? The one thing that everyone says that they miss about the office is the social interaction with their team.
Right.
So if you want to entice people back to the office, how do you create an environment that actually allows them to feel they're going to get those social interactions? And maybe initially, the office isn't a place where you go to do work. It's a place where you go to hang out with your team. Work will naturally come from your team being together, but the purpose is to bring the team together. That's the purpose. That's the incentive. That's the enticement. That's the inducement. The outcome will be the team will work on things that they want to work on because workmates, teammates, that's what naturally just happens. And is there lessons that we can learn, and are there other things? So your experience of going and getting away from your normal environment because you can do different things in that environment on vacation that you can't do at home. So what are the things that we can do differently in a workplace that again that sort of incentivizes people to travel those 4 hours? Granted, we won't travel 4 hours to the office. Some people may, that's okay. But in essence, it's take the lessons, right? What are the trigger points? What are the inducements, enticements to bring people together? Because there's no doubting that teams together blossom together, right? And that's well known, but it's also, if we want offices to move forward, to grow, and people to come back, we have to look at alternative ways and alternative habits to bring people back to the office. What do you think about those thoughts?
Totally. And I think it's the same question that we're going to have when it comes to reviving the conference experience or
Yep.
other types of work related gatherings. I think
Yeah.
that I am excited to see someone, really paint a picture that we can create that environment of safe protocols, but also allow us to experience the value of a conference setting. And that's something that I think I miss. And I think we have not yet seen anyone replicated online effectively. I don't know if you've had any experiences yet that have, we talked about this months ago, that someone's going to come up with an innovative way to do an online conference. And there's a couple of big ones coming up. I know CoreNet is doing some things in the weeks and months to come, as well as Future Offices and some other organizations that I've been affiliated with and worked with. I'm anxious to see what they've been working on these last few months, because I know that they depend on these conferences to be successful as organizations. So that type of thing is going to be interesting, but also, yeah, you're right that social piece is something as human beings we are really missing. And the idea of getting out of our routine, which is now 4 months old, the quarantine life, if we want to continue to call it that, finding a way for our own mental health and our own well-being, break that routine and do something like take a vacation. But that's something that's not really, I wish I could go to the beach every week, or every other week or something like that, or every month. And that's just not realistic. So sometime, some way of mixing things up and having those trips to the office, or having those trips to a shared space. And maybe it's building extensions, more outdoor places to meet as businesses. That's going to be tough in a place like New York City, but I can imagine in other parts of the country that we could have, outdoor meetings and depending on the weather and so forth. But anything we can do to allow people to experience that human interaction again is going to be essential in the long term. And again, this is a long-term perspective situation.
Yeah, and I also, I sort of had some thoughts about this, and I did speak with Andrew Mawson about it, sort of like perspectives, ping pong and back ideas and concepts about what would the office will look like in the future. And one of the things we suggested, we talked about, is like, does a day in the office look like where your first 2-3 hours is, 10-pin bowling, it's paintballing, it's doing stuff that actually brings the team together and sort of generates fun and camaraderie. And then the rest of the day is where you have a meal and then you do some project work. And that's what the day in the office looks like. You don't do that every day, obviously, but then you're being selective about when your team comes into the office. Your entire team comes into the office, and there's an energy formed, and there's a bonding in that. And then the rest of the time, you can leave it, 2, 3, 4 weeks. That energy that gets created in those moments actually sticks and bonds that team for a little while after. Now, whether that's just a ridiculous kind of thought or opportunity for people,
No, I
but then
like
it's
it.
like, okay, so
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not that's something that people will grasp, or whether organizations will think that's a little too much. But in essence, if you could bring a team of 20 people together on once a month, where everyone's going to be in, and you're going to create this bonding session, and then you're going to allow everyone to sort of let those creative juices flow and see what comes off it. But
Yeah, I like the idea.
but
I
anyway,
think that
but
that's what I'm
anyway,
hoping
time.
this beach trip has allowed me to have a little energy for the
No,
next
I'm
month
looking
or two.
forward to it. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to hear more about your some of your thoughts, and we'll definitely get touching on some of your the questions that you asked yourself, when we can sort of have a share for those. But our time is up, man. It just flown
Oh,
by. But
crazy.
great to see you again. Great to have you back. Great to chat with
Thank
you
you.
this morning, and
Good
I
to
look
see
forward to
you.
chatting tomorrow.
See you, Steve.
All right.